We've seen the brooding, lonely Batman. We've seen the vengeful, young Batman. And now, the DCU is promising us a Batman in his prime. But the version of the Dark Knight we're about to get is not the one that you think. The biggest twist to James Gunn's DCU Batman isn't a new villain or a darker suit, it's a son. And not just any son, an assassin. This is how fatherhood will fundamentally break and rebuild Batman as we know him. For decades, it feels like we've been caught in a loop. We see Bruce Wayne's parents meet their tragic end, we see him train, we see him make his first brutal steps as a vigilante. Then, just as he becomes a master crime fighter we know and love, the story reboots. We've had the Gothic Avenger, the gritty realist, and the tired, grizzled veteran. But the one thing fans have been screaming for is a Batman at his absolute peak of his abilities. An established hero, a master detective, and a feared member of the Justice League. When James Gunn and Peter Safran announced their new DC universe, this is exactly what they promised. Chapter 1 is called Gods and Monsters, and it's a Batman film, The Brave and the Bold. It will feature a caped crusader who is already an established protector of Gotham. There will be no origin story as far as we know. This Batman has been around. He's worked with sidekicks, and he's the core part of a larger universe. This is it, the moment we've been waiting for. A Batman who isn't starting his journey or ending it, but is right in the thick of his legendary career. But that's the thing about expectations. What does a prime Batman really look like? We imagine him as a solitary figure on a gargoyle, the lone guardian of his city. We picture a perfect strategist who is always in control, his emotional walls so high they could practically be in orbit. He's the ultimate loner who sacrificed all personal connection for the mission. That's the mythos we think we know. And that is the very expectation James Gunn is about to shatter. Because this Batman, the new DCU Batman, the hero in his prime, is about to face a challenge that has nothing to do with a supervillain's master plan. He's about to face a threat that can't be outsmarted, outpunched, or intimidated. It's a threat that will come from inside his own home, from a 10-year-old boy who is his own flesh and blood. The biggest challenge to Batman we've ever seen in live action isn't that he's in his prime, it's that he's a father, and that is going to change everything. To understand why this is such a monumental shift, we need to talk about the boy who will become the new Robin. This isn't Dick Grayson or Jason Todd, this is Damian Wayne, and he is a world breaker. The new film is set to be based on Grant Morrison's seminal comic book run, specifically the 2006 storyline, Batman and Son. This story drops a bombshell on Bruce Wayne's life. He learns that a passionate, often antagonistic affair he had years ago with Talia al Ghul, the daughter of his immortal enemy, Ra's al Ghul, produced a child. For the first time in 8 to 10 years of his life, Bruce had no idea he even had a son. And during that time, Damian wasn't playing with action figures. He was being raised by his mother in the League of Assassins. I mean, think about that for a second. The League of Assassins, a global organization of killers and fanatics. From the moment he could walk, Damian was trained to be the perfect weapon. He mastered dozens of martial arts, became an expert swordsman, and he was taught that killing is a solution. He was engineered to be the heir to the global empire of terror. James Gunn himself described Damian as his favorite Robin, calling him a little assassin, among other things that he said about him. This isn't a troubled kid Bruce finds on the streets. This is a fully formed killer who shows up on his doorstep. In the comics, Talia brings Damian to Gotham and essentially dumps him on Bruce, believing it's time he met his father. From the very first moment, the conflict is explosive. Damian is arrogant, entitled, and profoundly violent. He believes he is superior to everyone, including Bruce. He sees his father's refusal to kill not as a moral strength, but as a crippling weakness. He views the other Robins as pathetic pretenders to a role that is rightfully his. This introduction completely upends the Bat family. Damian isn't looking for a father figure. He's looking for a general to serve, and one he consistently finds wanting. This creates a fascinating and dangerous dynamic. Bruce is suddenly confronted with a living, breathing son. But this son is the walking embodiment of everything he fights against. He's a child soldier who sees violence as the only answer. Bruce Wayne, the man who built his entire life around a code forged in trauma, now has to be a father to a boy who would have killed Joe Chill without a moment's hesitation. This isn't about saving Gotham from a villain. It's about saving his own son from the darkness he was born into. Introducing Damian Wayne into Batman's life isn't just adding a sidekick. It's planting a bomb at the very foundation of his character. For his entire crime-fighting career, Batman has been defined by one unbreakable rule: he does not kill. This isn't just a preference, it's the core of his identity. It's the psychological dam holding back the flood of his own rage and trauma. It's what separates him from the criminals that he hunts. Unless it's in the movies and it looks cool, even though Batman's actions are directly responsible for their deaths. You know, if you look back at Batman Begins and a few other Batman movies, or basically every single Batman movie that's ever been made, he does things in the movie that directly lead to dozens of deaths, but we'll just brush over that. Now enter Damian, a 10-year-old boy taught that killing is the most efficient way to achieve a goal. He will cripple, maim, and if given the chance, execute villains. Not out of malice, but because that is his training. This creates an immediate and impossible conflict for Bruce. How do you patrol Gotham with a partner who fundamentally rejects your most important principle? Every single night becomes a moral crisis. Every fight is a test where Bruce has to be a crime fighter and a frantic parent at the same time. Not just stopping a villain, but stopping his own son from putting a sword through them. This will force Batman to change in ways we've never seen on the screen. His legendary preparedness is suddenly thrown into chaos. You can't create a contingency plan for a child's volatile emotions. You can't out-strategize a son who is desperate for your approval but has been programmed to act in a way you find abhorrent. It will expose a vulnerability in Batman that no villain has ever managed to find. And you can bet his enemies will see it. How long before a Scarecrow or the Joker realize that the quickest way to break the Bat is through his son? Damian isn't just a partner, he's a walking, talking weak point. This dynamic forces a level of emotional introspection on Bruce Wayne that's often missing from his big screen portrayals. He can no longer be the stoic, emotionally distant loner. He has to be a parent. He has to learn to communicate, empathize, and connect with the child who is in many ways a dark mirror of what he could have become. In trying to save Damian, Bruce is forced to constantly reaffirm his own humanity. We've seen how powerful this kind of story can be. Think of the relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu in The Mandalorian. A hardened, solitary warrior redefined by the sudden responsibility of caring for a child. Or consider Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us. A broken man who rediscovers his capacity for love through protecting a young girl who challenges him at every turn. The Brave and the Bold has the potential to be a superhero story in that same mold. A thrilling action movie on the surface, but a deeply emotional story about fatherhood, legacy, and redemption at its core. This will break Batman down to his very essence, and in the process, build him back into something more human than we've ever seen before. Damian's arrival doesn't just change Batman, it sends a shockwave through his entire world, redefining Gotham and Batman's place in the wider DCU. For years, the cinematic Batman has been on an island. Even in team-up movies, he's a solitary operator. The concept of the Bat family has been largely absent from the big screen, aside from a few hints in past tragedies. The Brave and the Bold is set to change that completely, introducing the Bat family as a key component of the DCU. The presence of a new, volatile Robin immediately begs the question, where are the others? Damian's existence implies that there are other Robins who came before him. Where's Dick Grayson, the original Boy Wonder, now likely operating as Nightwing? What about Jason Todd, Tim Drake, or Barbara Gordon? The dynamic between Damian and these established heroes is a source of incredible drama. In his arrogance, Damian sees them as inferior and clashes with them for his father's attention. This creates a family dynamic that is messy, complicated, and incredibly compelling. Alfred Pennyworth, always a surrogate father to Bruce, is now suddenly a grandfather, trying to mediate a broken family. It adds layers of comedy, tragedy, and heart to the entire mythos. This also recontextualizes Batman's relationship with his villains. His rogues gallery will quickly learn that this new Robin is a different breed, and that Batman now has a direct emotional target they can exploit. A threat to Damian is a threat unlike any before, forcing Batman to act in ways that might be riskier and more desperate than ever before. This more fantastical, family-oriented approach fits perfectly into James Gunn's broader vision for the DCU, which is being built around legacy and connection. We're getting a Superman who embodies hope, and this new Batman will embody the struggles of family. This allows for a more comic-accurate DCU where heroes are part of a sprawling community. This is a Batman who can exist in the same world as gods and space cops because his story is grounded not just in darkness, but in a very human, very relatable struggle. He's no longer just a solo act. He's the patriarch of a messy, loyal family. This new direction is one of the most exciting things to happen to Batman in years, moving beyond stories we've seen a dozen times. But I want to know what you think. What are the biggest challenges Bruce will face raising a trained assassin? I'd also like to know which member of the Bat family you're most excited to see him interact with. For so long, we've defined Batman by his trauma. The lone orphan, forever the symbol of vengeance. With The Brave and the Bold, the DCU is daring to define him by something new. Fatherhood. By By finally moving past the origin story and giving us an experienced hero, the filmmakers are freeing themselves to tell a more complex story. The introduction of Damian Wayne is the master stroke. He's the ultimate challenge to Batman's moral code and a chance for Bruce Wayne's redemption. This isn't about redeeming Batman in the eyes of Gotham, but about redeeming him in the eyes of his own son, and perhaps in his own. It forces him to be more than just a symbol. It forces him to be a father. The script is still in development, and while story details are in flux, James Gunn has confirmed that the core concept of Batman and his son remains the explosive heart of the project. He's also noted that while no one has been cast, many prominent actors are eager to take on his complex vision of the Dark Knight. You can check out my video right there where I break down some of the best actors us fans believe should play the next Batman in James Gunn's DCU. This father-son dynamic promises to give us the most layered, emotionally vulnerable, and ultimately the most heroic Batman we've ever seen. He won't just be fighting for the soul of his city, but for the soul of his child. This isn't the Batman you expect, and that's what makes it so incredibly exciting. Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you're already subscribed to this channel, I thank you, and if you're new to this channel and you like what you saw, go ahead and smash that subscribe button down there and hit that little like button like the sign there says. Are you excited for getting the Bat family? Do you have an actor you'd love to see take up the mantle of Batman? Like always, let's keep the conversation going after the video ends, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.